actually, it's a good time, I think, to perhaps introduce our next guest, and that is our Labour MP, our friend from Taieri, and, in actual fact, the opposition spokesman on mental health, and that is Ingrid Leary, MP, and she joins us now. Ingrid, what kind of weekend have you had? I hope you've had a good one.
Yeah, it's been a busy weekend, thanks, Michael. The weather down here, as you're probably aware, has been absolutely glorious.
Stunning.
We had the first stunning Workers' Memorial Day yesterday that I can remember in the gardens in Dunedin, remembering those people who have died in the workplace and calling for workplace reform for better safety. That was a great event. Went to the Dutch event in Foxton on Saturday, being an MP of Dutch heritage. A wonderful community event with, really good activities pulled together by volunteers. And then on Saturday evening, to keep up with the ethnic dimension, I attended as the special guest for the Tamil Society in Dunedin's AGM and party. And what I noticed, actually, Michael, was it was a fun event. There was a bit of an impromptu fashion parade of the women, and then the women got the men up, and everyone was laughing and having a good time. And I thought, isn't it interesting that most of the cultural group events that I go to, the adults can have fun, and it's quite playful, and there's no alcohol. And I just wonder if sort of mainstream Pākehā New Zealand adults have forgotten to have fun without alcohol being at every event, and it was just my sort of thought at the time.
Oh, good God, woman. I mean, mine, and for God's sake, this should be given to us prescription. I mean, we should be able to go to the chemist shop and get it, for God's sake, free.
Or turn on the tap.
Exactly. What's the story? Yes, that's right. All right. No, fair enough. I suppose it depends what environment you are. I don't know. I mean, if ethnically you did a breakdown of violence against women in this world, that would be a very interesting, and do the whole world. It would be a very interesting conclusion you might reach. Yeah, you've probably looked across the ditch at Australia at the moment. What's your view on that?
Look, I think action does have to follow words. It's interesting that we call it domestic violence. I was having this debate with somebody yesterday when they were talking about date rape and said, Jimmy Carr, the comedian, had said, why do we have to call it date rape? It's over-explaining it. Rape is rape. Well, violence is violence. But I do think it kind of gives a sense of what is the flavour of the violence. In the old days, of course, domestic violence meant, it was aligned with that thinking, just the domestic, or we're not going to, put police resources to just the domestic. I don't think it has that stigma anymore, but there definitely has to be action. And some would say that there is a movement of violence and extremism against women. There certainly has been against rainbow communities, and we can see that play out in the African nations, where 7 of them have now changed their progressive laws around homosexual law reform to outlaw it again. Apparently women are the next on the list. I don't know, but certainly peddling hate and division is one way that the uber rich can get into countries, not have to worry about the rule of law and human rights, and make a lot of money. So,
did you say African countries are doing it?
Yeah, that's right. There's 7. I think I'm trying to remember the last one, whether it was Ghana, but one by one, many of them are reversing the tolerance to homosexuality.
Well, I can't see the same trend happening here, but that's Africa for you.
Well, the trans community has certainly been under fire. Absolutely has been.
I don't know. I mean, I don't see proof of that. I have to say, I see trans. Yeah.
I do, Michael. I've had my office defaced speaking out.
Yeah, so did I. But I have to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that they're having your MP's office defaced is necessary proof that. And you're not transgender anyhow, Ingrid.
No, but I do have good connections with the trans communities down here, and different communities have been under fire from particular individuals, I have to say. So often it depends who's in the mix throwing the stones. And so there have been people targeted in Dunedin, and I've certainly been made aware of that as the MP, and then my office was targeted when I spoke up. So you're absolutely right. It's not necessarily a growing movement, but there are pockets of it happening, and I do think, as I've always said on your show, a lot of this is influenced by politics that are happening elsewhere in the world being imported into New Zealand, and we need to be very careful about determining our own principles in politics and not following international trends.
Oh, listen, you're not going to get a disagreement from me. I'd love to get rid of that wokeness that comes out of the UK all the time, but there you go. Now, moving on. You would have enjoyed last week, from a Schadenfreude point of view, talking about misogyny with 2 female cabinet ministers being demoted.
No, actually, I don't take any personal pleasure in the personal element of Penny Simmons and Melissa Lee being demoted. I do, however, think that it is a very good thing from a roles perspective that we have 2 ministerial roles that were ineffective and getting in the way, actually, of change, certainly for broadcasting, and the damage that was happening to the disability community through the ministerial role that Penny Simmons held. I'm very pleased that those have gone or been demoted and that they'll be replaced, but I don't get any personal pleasure from it. It's a brutal game, politics, as you know, and it's horrible to see the demise of individual people, particularly when they are women, because we need strong women in Parliament.
Oh, you see, I don't care about whether they're women or men. My only question is, are they competent? In Lee's case, she clearly wasn't. And so she's been booted out of cabinet entirely. But a lot of people made a big deal of that last week, and then I looked at the fact that Penny Simmons has just lost a portfolio, so she's still got a couple of others from memory, and she's still in cabinet. Melissa Lee is a minister outside cabinet and retains a couple of other portfolios as well, so she still gets roughly paid the same amount of money. It's not exactly getting booted to the backbenches, is it?
No, but I don't think they've shown particular confidence in their other portfolios. I was listening carefully to Christopher Luxon, who talked about how well Melissa Lee was doing in economic development, and my question was, well, where's the evidence? I haven't seen her say boo on that portfolio, so don't know, what impact she is having. As far as Penny Simmons go, I think she's also proving very ineffective in her environmental role, where she is supposed to be the champion for that and hasn't done it, and secondly, she's not in the cosy club of the 3 ministers who make decisions on fast-track legislation. So probably useful to have her there if you want a minister that is not going to be effective. That's maybe why she's retained that role.
I don't know. Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a pretty limited talent pool at Parliament anyhow, and then you try to put that limited talent pool in a party across a variety of portfolios. There's always going to be strong and weak ministers, aren't there?
I don't agree about the talent pool. I think there are very talented people. Sometimes I do feel that the political party system can get in the way of effective change, and one of the examples I would give is the cross-party group that Joseph Mooney and I led going over to Taiwan with a New Zealand Inc. perspective. People that we didn't know very well, so there was Jenny Sylvester and myself from Labour, we had Sam Uppendale, Joseph Mooney from National, Andy Foster from New Zealand First, Todd Stevenson from ACT, all very different and diverse. All of us have an interest in geopolitics, I guess you'd say, and in trade. And we really had some great political discussions where we debated policy, and what I found was that the people who I thought might, normally I'd look at them a crossover at ACT and think you're a bunch of nutters. There was rational logic. What obviously is very different is the assumptions underlying the logic, where we are coming from and how we assume that the situations of people are or what motivates them. So if we had more of that, I think we would actually have some more intelligent decision-making rather than the very tribal orientation that our political system seems to be in currently. Again, I think that has come from imported politics. It wasn't how the Westminster system worked. It is very much how the US system works.
Yeah, listen, it has been as tribal as long as I've been involved, I've got to be honest with you. But, yeah, and it's not a great thing about the Westminster system, to be honest with you either, Ingrid. Listen, talking about that, and I think, I don't know, I hope Hugh had put you up to it or advised you of it, Victoria University, we're talking about universities and free speech, have just decided to cancel the invitation to a particular forum as a result of people feeling that Jonathan Ayling, the Free Speech Union in particular, had been championing people who were guilty of hate speech in this country. In your view, is that a good way of dealing with that free speech issue?
I think it is. I was listening to your commentary just before you introduced me, and no, I wasn't alluded to this, but I do have a view that, yes, we need free speech, but not where universities are being used as vehicles to deliberately create division and extreme behaviour. And I know that the question then is who makes those decisions, and that is a vexed question. If we look at the tour that was planned by, now what was her name, the UK activist?
Posy Parker.
Posy Parker. I mean, you know, she got what she wanted. She was a notorious attention seeker. It was very divisive. I think that the speakers that have been uninvited from university precincts fall into a pretty similar category. It's a difficult line to draw, and you said it's a long bow to draw. I don't think the bow is as long, you know, we'll have to disagree on that, and I think it is responsible of universities to make sure that they are not exploited for the sake of groups that want to create division.